Hi, I'm Theo. Some people asked if they should get my 3D printer. Well, the main 3D printer that I'm mostly using nowadays is my Alfawise U10. I won't recommend this print for several reasons. First of all, it does not really get any upgrades anymore, and I think you cannot even buy it anymore. You probably can find a used machine somewhere, but this 3D printer had a lot of flaws when it was introduced. So this is a 400 by 400 by 500 millimeter 3D printer. So it's really big. And my machine arrived with several flaws. Well, the feet of the machine were ripped off, they were cheap plastic feet. I replaced those with these industrial hard rubber feet here that work a lot better to get the vibrations from the machine. And I also added these rods here to stiffen the frame. I changed the assembly of the lower build plate here. Originally there was just this screw here with the adjustable nut underneath, and that means if you twist the nut you would also twist the screw, so it was absolutely useless to adjust the height. I made sure to have a counter nut on the other side of the build plate, and I also added thermal insulation so it doesn't pull that much current anymore. And I also made a better strain relief here for the cables. Next thing that I changed is the extruder assembly. That's what it came with. You can see here there is no guidance part for the filament. So if the filament has to travel back, it would create a mess in here, and it will be unusable for any flexible filaments like TPU. So I changed it with this one. That works a lot better. In the future I'll probably change it to this one here. That's a gear mechanism so that the filament is pushed from both sides and not just from one side. Next thing I had to do, I had to adjust the couplers. They were all stretched and bent out of shape when the machine arrived. I just managed to get them more or less straight. It's still not as good as it could be. I have new ones, but so far I haven't installed them. On the top of the lead screws here I added bearings. Originally on both sides bearing had a little problem. It did rub on one end and I had to remove it, order a new one, and as soon as that arrives I'll install that. The next thing that I changed is the tube that is for the filament to get to the extruder. It's now a original Capricorn tube. The tube that came with the printer was absolutely useless. Several filaments got stuck in it, and it also did rub through at the couplers after 1 or 2 months, so I really had to change it. And it also wasn't very temperature resistant, because every time I printed with temperatures around 240 degrees, it kind of destroyed the end of the tubing. It turned black and filament stuck there, so I got several blockings that in the tube that I had to remove. Since I now have the original Capricorn tubing, that problem is totally gone and it prints beautifully. Oh, and I changed the filament cooling fan a little bit. I added this plastic 3D printed part here that guides the airflow directly to the nozzle. Originally this fan did just push air inside, cooling more or less the heat block, but not the filament that gets pushed out by the extruder. Next thing that I changed, I added a layer of PVA glue to the print bed, so it's still printing on glass. I checked with the infrared camera how the distribution is, and the glass really works very well in getting the heat evenly everywhere. So I do not have heat spots that could create problems with bed adhesion. That's why I still use the glass bed. And also the PVA glue makes it stick very well. I built a little stand for my filament. I did add some tensioning springs. I added several springs, 2 here for this belt and 2 underneath. It's now printing very well. If you look a little bit closer here, this filament does ooze a little bit. I should have adjusted my retraction, but I only print 1 single spool of filament of this material, so it was just too much work to make a adjusted profile just for this filament. If you think about getting this, you now know what I had to do externally, but that's not all that was actually broken, because when this printer arrived, it did not print at all, because the electronics inside this box were also broken. Luckily, I got 3 replacements, even for more parts than were broken. Here's the control board that was shipped as a replacement. What was broken was actually just one of the motors here, and those are plugged in, so I only had to remove one and put it in this machine, and now it works. And while I replaced it, I also added some TL smoother that make the ghosting artifacts that I had before mostly disappear. So right now I'm happy with this printer, but I wish I had known what troubles it had before I bought it.